Hi guys, so I have another book here for you. It's called Baseball Bats for Christmas. This is the cover, it's really nice. See? And this is the inside, it's really cool. Check that out. It was a glorious time, even for a very asthmatic boy. Arveluk was 7 years old, and Arveluk was very asthmatic. He struggled when he walked, and struggled to catch his breath when he sat down. And Arveluk loved Christmas. In 1955, Arveluk lived in Repulse Bay. Let me tell you a thing or two about Repulse Bay. There is a brass plate on a rock outcrop that was put there when Arveluk was just a baby, and no matter how many times you hit it with another rock, it would not come off. Arveluk's mother would say, "If you knock that brass plate off that rock, the whole world will come to a terrible end." Arveluk imagined the brass plate coming off and the whole world blowing the air out through the hole like a giant seal float, bouncing around and around all over space. So he hit it again and again, but to no avail. It still sits there, declaring for all the world that Repulse Bay is way up at the north end of Hudson Bay, smack dab on the Arctic Circle. Less than 100 people lived there in 1955, and in winter they all lived in igloos and sod huts. Another thing about Repulse Bay is that there are no standing ups, or as Peter, Jackie, Vo, and Arveluk later found out, things commonly known as trees. There is not one single tree to be seen anywhere. The land is as bald as the belly of a dog with puppies. See, that's the brass plate that he's talking about right there. They're trying to remove it. In 1955, though, trees arrived in Repulse Bay. There were 6 of them. They came in by airplane. As usual, the Union Jack had been hoisted up the flagpole just before they arrived. The Union Jack always went up before an airplane came. Then Rocky Parsons flew his trusty Norseman airplane over the Arctic Circle, and ran out of gas. His engine went put 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 and quit, way up there in the sky. His propeller stopped going around, but he glided his airplane ever so gracefully and plunked it down in front of the Hudson's Bay Company's store. The trees were brought out of the airplane and dumped on the snowbank in front of Arveluk's hut. Then, oh, and there they sat. Rocky Parsons was our hero. When people were sick, he always brought us a doctor, and when we needed stuff, he always came. He arrived in he arrived in fair weather and foul. All the manager had to do at the Hudson Bay store was to hoist up the Union Jack and Rocky Parsons would come. But we could not talk to Rocky Parsons because we did not understand any English at all. We just smiled at him a lot and dreamed of some day flying his airplane with him. Rocky Parsons smiled back as he pumped gas into his airplane from a 45-gallon drum. He pushed and pulled the lever on his pump back and forth, going squish chuck, squish chuck, squish chuck. Then he jumped back into his pilot's seat. The Norseman spit out a lot of thick smoke. Then the propeller started going round and around with such a big bang that it made your ears dizzy. He went way out onto the ice with the skis bouncing over the snowdrifts, going flop, 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 flop. Then, turning around, he took off with a deafening roar, just over their heads. He would not come back until the Union Jack went up the flagpole again. But there were the things he had brought sitting on the snowbank in front of Arveluk's hut. They were green and had spindly branches all over. "What are they?" Jack asked. "Standing ups," Peter said confidently. "I have seen them in books at the church. Father Didier showed them to us." "What are they for?" Ivo asked. Peter shrugged his shoulders and replied, "I don't know." They did not have too long to wonder about them, of course. Christmas was coming. There were things to be done. There was a church to go to at midnight. Everyone gathered at the little mission. The older people sat on benches against the walls. The younger men and women stood, and the kids played on the floor in the middle. It was warm, and there were electric lights, the only electric lights in all of Repulse Bay. On the walls were pictures of the Pope, the Bishop, and Queen Elizabeth. Also on one wall hung a giant pendulum clock. Father Didier, a tall, thin man in a black robe, stood with the men and women, smoking his pipe. Around his neck he carried by a string a silver cross with Jesus nailed to it. He was a kind man who enjoyed a good laugh. He was our priest. He was our teacher, and when we were sick he was our nurse. When the clock chimed midnight, the curtains in front of the church were opened. The benches were rearranged to face the altar, and the people sat, women and girls on the left, men and boys on the right. Arveluk sat with his mother. Father Didier donned a white pleated robe, and over that a fancy vestment with a cross on the back of it. Peter, who was the altar boy, put on a white robe with the white lace on the hems, and the service began. There was a big organ in the church with giant foot pedals and lots of buttons. Father Didier adjusted the buttons, pumped the pedals, and played, swaying back and forth as he moved his fingers over the keys. The music filled the small church, and people sang, "O come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant, O come ye to Bethlehem." And so Christmas came. Christmas was a time when you took your most favorite thing in the world and gave it to your very best friend. Arveluk trudged into Peter's igloo with his toy gun, the one with the bullets that looked like real bullets, behind his back. He said, "Happy New Year," gave the gun to Peter, and left. Peter "Happy New Year" him and gave him a pair of caribou skin mitts which he wore until the palms had no fur at all on them left, and then they were still warm. Arveluk's father gave his only telescope and got a wild dog in return. The dog ran away for a whole year, then came back the following Christmas. But no matter how hard they tried, they could not catch her. When all else failed, Arveluk's father laid on his belly on the roof of their hut with a lasso in his hand, and waited. When the dog approached the bait he had set, he rose, and twirling the lasso round his head, he threw it. The lasso flew way out and landed right across the dog's head. The hours and hours Arveluk's father had spent playing cowboy had paid off. When they finally tamed it, that dog became the best lead dog they ever had. That Christmas, the manager of the Hudson's Bay Company's store gave Arveluk a blue and red rubber ball with white stripe around the middle. We loved to play ball. We would set up 4 bases and try to find a stick to use for bat and play. If you had a good stick, and you could hit the ball a long way. Ivo was the best hitter. He was always the biggest and the strongest. But there are no trees in Repulse Bay, and when there are no trees, there are hardly ever any sticks to use for bats. At Christmas, in 1955, though, there were trees in Repulse Bay. There were 6 of them. Ivo, who was also the smartest, looked at those spindly trees with a twinkle in his eye and said, "I know what those things are for." "What?" we all asked. "Baseball bats," he replied. "Rocky Parsons brought us baseball bats for Christmas." He got an axe. He took one of the spindly trees and chopped off all the spindly branches. Then he fashioned a bat, a real round bat. After much hacking and swinging of the bat to see how it felt, it was ready. When the kids in Repulse Bay found out about our bat, they all came over to play. Ivo batted first with Peter pitching and Arveluk playing catcher. Arveluk always played catcher since he could not run as much as the other kids. When Ivo hit the ball, it went up far, far away. Yay, yay! Everyone cheered, jumping up and down. Sometimes when he hit the ball just right, even Arveluk could run all the way around and touch all four bases before Jack had time to get the ball and hit him with it to take him out. He would then sit on the fourth base and puff and cough and try to catch his breath. And he would smile and laugh and laugh. We played ball all that spring and all that summer, making more bats with the spindly trees when they broke. And in autumn we could hardly wait for Christmas, when again the Union Jack would go up the flagpole and Rocky Parsons would once again bring us baseball bats for Christmas. And that's the end of the book. That's the last picture. And the back cover is the two people that wrote it. I hope you guys like that. Bye.